Hi everyone, my name is Catherine Jantz and I'm here in my backyard butterfly garden right here in Patchogue Village, just a couple blocks away from our amazing PMLIB library. And I'd like to thank Allison Roselle and the PMLIB library for allowing me to submit this video today. Today I want to speak about a very special insect, and I am by no means a scientist, but I am an enthusiast when it comes to our beneficial insects, our pollinators, and today I'd like to talk to you about the monarch butterfly. I want to talk about the butterfly, its epic migration, the obstacles that butterfly faces, and what we can do to help as a community to help them on their journey. So, the monarch butterfly is an amazing butterfly in that it makes a really long migration every year. They can travel up to 3,000 miles, and they could start as far north as Canada, and they fly south all the way to the mountains of Michoacan in Mexico. And here they overwinter on the oyamel trees, and they cluster to keep warm, and may leave when the sun comes out just for a little bit, just to get some water from a puddle, and then they'll return back to those trees. And here they'll stay until about April, and in April they'll start to head back north again, and they'll lay their eggs, they'll die, but then those eggs will turn into caterpillars, which then transform into butterflies, and then those butterflies will head north again and lay their eggs, and the cycle continues until they come all the way up north to whether it be Patchogue or somewhere in Ohio or Canada. And here we'll see our last generation of monarchs, our fifth generation of monarchs, fourth and fifth really, but the fifth generation is the generation that is a super monarch, in that monarch will make this epic migration in the fall, and we'll usually see them in late September and October start to head back down south. And it's kind of cool that we get to be part of that epic migration here. Now, on their journey, they do face some obstacles, and those obstacles are, one, that there are not as many readily available native wildflowers, and milkweed. We don't have as much milkweed available for them, and that is the only plant that a monarch will lay its eggs on. It's also a weed. It's a beautiful weed, but it is a weed. The use of pesticides and herbicides have also affected their numbers greatly, and the herbicides kill off a lot of the common milkweed and a lot of these milkweeds that grow in places that we might not want them, like on farmland. Farmers do not want their crops to be competing against these weeds. A lot of the fields and meadows that once were, we don't have, just due to like population growth. That might be communities now, storefronts. So as they're journeying, making this journey from the north down south, it's not as easy for them to find these food resources that they need in order to make it there, and also enough energy to store and food to store so that they have stored fat to make it through that entire winter in the forest of Michoacan. So what can we do to help? As a community, we can plant native wildflowers, we can plant milkweed. Now, you don't have to plant milkweed, but if you do plant milkweed, they will come. My backyard over the last 4 years since I planted this garden has become a highway of monarchs. We all enjoy it so much. The kids enjoy it. Sometimes we'll take some in. We have like butterfly nets, and we'll take caterpillars in and watch them form their chrysalises and turn into beautiful monarch butterflies, and my children will let them go and release them and say goodbye and wish them good luck on their journey back to Mexico, or to Mexico. So when we talk about native wildflowers, there are a couple of perennials that I have in my garden. And these perennial plants you could either plant from seed, or you can find them at your local nurseries. A lot of mine I did get from Fantastic Gardens, which is right here in Patchogue. They have such an awesome selection of flowers, and they're very helpful there if you do need it. They also have milkweed as well if you did decide you wanted to have milkweed in your garden. I would suggest, in my garden, I have Echinacea, which is always very popular for the monarchs. They do enjoy it. I'm trying to see if I did print out a couple pictures. My printer doesn't work so good, but this is an Echinacea, a flower from an Echinacea plant, and a Monarch Butterfly feeding from it. This was right here in my garden. I took, maybe it was last summer. So we can plant Echinacea. This is a perennial. It comes up every year. You could also plant Black-Eyed Susans. Black-Eyed Susans are very, those are perennials. They're also native wildflowers. And when they're native wildflowers, they're great because you don't need to tend to them very much. They're used to the soil. You don't need to put in a lot of work to have these flowers in your garden. And another great flower that I would suggest to plant, they do seed a lot, but these are New England Asters. They're pretty. They look like little purple daisies, and these are great to plant, and they are perennials. They're great to plant because they're late summer bloomers. So when all your other flowers are dying off, you have these flowers that come up in late summer, and those are a great food source for the monarch butterfly as well. Some annuals you can plant are Mexican sunflowers. Mexican sunflowers are really pretty. They are I also took this picture of my garden. Here's a monarch feeding from a Mexican sunflower. They stand about 4 feet off the ground. They're annuals. You'd have to plant them every year, but they're awesome because they last all summer, and they die when the first frost sets in. So you'll see these all the way through the winter. I'm sorry, through the fall, which is kind of neat. Like last summer, I had a monarch on one of my Mexican sunflowers like in November, and you don't normally see monarchs in the month of November, but it was kind of neat to know that, I mean, it was a straggler, but it was nice to know that we had flowers to supply for them to help them along their journey. Another plant that you can plant are zinnias. Zinnias are also really pretty. This is also an annual and another favorite of the monarchs because like the Mexican sunflower, they do have a nice platform for them to land on, and they are higher off the ground. And high off the ground is great, and the monarchs prefer that because they don't have to worry about predators that might be low to the ground, so they feel safer, and it's another great source of nectar. And then also, if you did want to start a monarch butterfly garden, I would suggest planting milkweed. Now, there are many different kinds of milkweed. Some are more invasive than others. I planted swamp milkweed in my garden, and here is an image of swamp milkweed. This is before the flowers, actually, just little buds there. And you can also see there's a tiny little caterpillar right here feeding from one of the flowers, actually, before it opens up. And this swamp milkweed is great because the flowers do last all summer. And what's cool is that while the butterflies are above feeding from the flowers, you have the caterpillars below feeding from the leaves. They're beautiful to watch, and also a lot of other beneficial insects love to feed from these flowers and pollinate as well, such as bees. You'll see a lot of activity. I even saw a hummingbird moth in my garden last year feeding from the flowers of this swamp milkweed. Another choice of plant that you can plant is this is just called, let me hope I'm holding this right. This is butterfly weed. It has beautiful orange flowers. I have this in my garden as well, and monarchs will lay their eggs on that also. The other common, well, it's called common milkweed. This is common milkweed. And this plant, these are like the 3 major types of milkweed you're going to see in the Northeast here. This type of milkweed is a great choice as well, but I would suggest planting it if you have a lot of area that doesn't need to be tended to, like that you don't mow often. It is quite invasive. The roots, it has a long tap root. It can go like, I think, 8 feet down into the ground. So if you ever did want to remove it, it is a little tough. And they also have trailing roots where if you plant it one spot next year, you might see another one pop up like 10 feet away from that. So if, I mean, I had planted it in my garden and I tried to remove it, but even to this day, I still see them popping up here and there. So I wouldn't suggest that type of milkweed unless you do have a large area that you don't need to tend to too much, and that you don't mind if it kind of gets a little wild looking. So these are the ways that we can help as a community. If you have any questions, you can always contact me. My Instagram page is Patchogue-Butterfly Patch, and you can direct message me there if you have any specific questions on how to start your own butterfly garden. Having a water source is a really good idea. I'm going to show you. I have this like cat water bowl, but what I did was I put rocks in the bottom of it so that insects could land and have a drink of water. So in the hot summer when they do need water, they have a place where they could get that. I'm trying to think what else. Let me see. Another thing is to have coverage for the monarchs. So for instance, right here, I have a trellis, and on that trellis I have honeysuckle. And if it rains, or to have a tree nearby, so if there's a storm, that the monarchs have a place to find coverage to get away from the heavy rains. Back here, I'll just give you a quick, the garden's coming along, but it's still early. Here we have, this is my swamp milkweed just coming up now, right? It is early in the season, so we don't have those beautiful flowers yet, but we do have the start of them. Here's my Echinacea. This is Echinacea coming up right here. I have some catmint, which is also great. It's not a native plant here, but it's also a great, you know, the pollinators love it. And here we have some more Echinacea. And these are my black-eyed Susans. And I do have my annuals planted as well. They're tiny, but it's starting to shape up. We're excited for the season. It's a lot. It really is a lot of fun. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Thank you again to the PMLIB Library for allowing me to submit this video. I hope it was informative. Again, I'm not a scientist, but over the years, through trial and error, we've gotten pretty far, and we've come to really enjoy having this garden and watching the monarchs fly through every summer. Now this month I was going to run a library class at the library in the children's department to talk about the monarch butterfly, and all the kids that did register for this class would have been helping to plant a butterfly garden right at our PMLIB library. Unfortunately, due to the circumstances, this is not going to happen now, but hopefully in the near future we can do this, and then in August we would revisit and see what has unfolded. Do we have eggs? Do we have caterpillars? Do we have any monarch butterflies visiting this garden? And it's a great way for our community to get involved and help the monarchs on their way. I hope everyone's healthy and everyone's safe, and hopefully we'll all get back together soon, sooner than later. Okay, bye-bye.